Hey, how's it going? I'm Marlene. Thanks for wandering by. So, today I've been inspired to like simplify or go back to basics or like return to my roots or like I don't know, like hit like foundational things about the tarot. And I've been inspired by that because I've been working with Terre de Marseille, and it's made me like look at pip decks, and it's made me think about like the essentials, right? Of like the parts and pieces of the tarot, which specifically make me think of it's the numbers and the elements, and then it makes me think of the parts of speech. It makes me think of grammar. And I know I'm not the first person, definitely not the first person who has combined, the numbers and the elements when you're reading pip decks, especially to like have like a sentence for each card and to use the same kind of system over and over again, to read the tarot, that way. Essentially, like we're creating like a kind of like almost like a little bit of a formula with which to read the tarot. And I've seen people like Tom Benjamin do this, and I've seen it in different books and things. But I got inspired to like kind of even nail it down further into grammar and parts of speech. And so, like, I want to explain this to you and share this with you and hopefully, like, give you ideas and like inspire you, like I was, without like making this feel like a grammar lesson because, when I was a classroom teacher, I was an English teacher. So I don't want to make it feel like that, but I just kind of want to share like my thoughts and ideas with you. First, before I get into like my thoughts and ideas, I want to just share like pip decks that I'll be using. I think I think I want to get to a spot where we do like a little bit of like a reading. And so the pip decks that I have in my collection that I really enjoy is Alice in Wonderland tarot deck. So this is the Disney one. These are the backs. I edged mine in this gold, and this is like truly pips, okay? I don't really think that the maybe the formation of them is a little bit, can kind of give you some clues, but not really. This is very just Pippy Pips. Um, Pippy Pips. Well, look, that's the Nine of Spears, Nine of Wands. So anyway, that's Alice in Wonderland tarot deck, and we'll come back to her. I have another deck that's a pip deck. It's the movie tarot, and I have modified this deck because I don't remember why, and I did a terrible job of it. But it's also a pip deck, but the pips do have like little Rider-Waite kind of leaning, you know, ideas in there. So these are the pips. But I like a pip deck in Marseille. Well, Marseille is a different thing, which I'm still kind of working on. They really, they really make you kind of just get like to the root, to the just make it, I mean, it's simplified but deep, if that makes sense. And those of you that have been reading this way probably, completely understand that. Okay, so first I want to talk about, I'm going to try to do this without really sounding like I'm giving a lesson. But first I want to talk about the elements. So the suits, right? So we're talking about our swords, wands, discs, and cups. And the way that I like the part of speech that I assign to the element is verbs. Okay, so I elements and the suits are verbs to me. So they are, I mean, they're action verbs really for me. And so I feel like if you want to assign like a specific verb to each of the elements to then use in like a sentence that you create when you read the minor cards, right? We'll get to the chords and the majors in just a moment, but you can, there's a bunch of different ways that you can think about doing it. I was inspired by oh, what's the name of the deck? Yeah, I was inspired by the Universal Tarot of Marseille, and also yeah, the Universal Tarot of Marseille gave me some ideas for what I would call the the elements, the suits, right? What words I would give them. And but also I started thinking about this. I started thinking about like did we, if you're reading like a Rider Waite Smith style, or maybe some of you are doing this still and I'm just not seeing it in like the places where I've been reading and learning about tarot. But I feel like in some ways we kind of moved away from looking at the suit as the item itself, and we like expanded upon the metaphor and expanded upon the elemental kind of association, and really only reading, cups as feelings and swords as intellect and thoughts, and, discs or pentacles as resources, earth, and then the wands as like, passion and creativity. But like that, those ideas came from the item itself that's like a symbol for something. So like I wrote this down, right? Why do we stop looking at swords, wands, discs, cups as what they are? Like literally the item. And does it work if we kind of think of them literally as the item? And is that, can we get our verb for each of them in that way? Like swords are weapons, wands are magical tools, cups are vessels, and coins are money. So I know some folks definitely do still read the tarot with that like very much in mind. And I think, but the other ideas, grew out of that, like those like very basic item, symbol, metaphor ideas. Um, this, and then I wrote, yeah, I think some folks work quite literally with each of the suits without thinking of them elementally or then by extension metaphorically. How would it change the way I read if I boiled it down to the more literal item interpretation? And that makes the verb choice of the suit easier to do, right? So I came up with like the ways that I, gave the verb to each of them. And if I get myself together, I'll put it up here on the screen. So wand, magical tool. And so the verb then is creating. Then cup, vessel, and the verb for that is interacting with. And I got these ideas definitely from Universal Tarot of Marseille. And I think I might have changed them a little bit. And then sword, weapon, defending, right? Although you could do attacking or defending, because I think the swords, it's a weapon you could be defending or attacking with. I chose defending. That's just the verb, but I mean, I reserve the right to change the verb whenever I want to. And then coins, money, obtaining. Okay, so we have creating, interacting with, defending, and obtaining. But so that's like based on the item, but you could also do your verb for the element or verb for the suit, well, mostly based on the elemental thing, right? So you could pick those words that have to do with the item, but also the element. So like for example, wand could be burning because it's fire, burning. Cup, it's a vessel, so you can say drinking. And then the swords are air, so you could say blowing. Sorry, I'm like a middle schooler. Um, blowing. And then coins or pentacles or discs, however you read that suit, the earth suit. I was thinking of like earthy words. Earth is always the hardest for me to come up with, but I wrote down digging, right? So you can have burning, drinking, blowing, and digging. And then the idea is you'll see my formula. I mean, like, and those some of you may already know where I'm going, is that we're pairing this with the numbers, okay? So we're pairing this with the words for the numbers, which I'll reveal what they are in a moment. And like then you can put it together with with the number, and then you can write your sentence that's the sentence is like the meaning of the card. Okay, so that's what I was thinking about the elements. I was thinking about like their basic shape, their coins, this is money, and this is a weapon, swords are weapons, and so on and so forth. So I thought like that would be cool. And the verb feels like the right part of speech to me for the suit. Okay, so let's talk about the numbers then. The numbers are nouns. And you'll find this, so they're, person, place, or thing, typically a thing. Um, and they are almost always nouns. Like when I see, when you look through guidebooks, when you read about tarot, the keywords tend to be nouns more than anything else. It made me think of, and I went and read, you guys, I'm such a nerd, but Gertrude Stein, who's a writer, she was kind of in the like bohemian era of like the 1930s, so like a contemporary with F. Scott Fitzgerald and Hemingway, I think. Yeah, I want to say. Anyway, Gertrude Stein, I studied in college, and I hadn't read this essay in a long time, but Gertrude Stein famously wrote a an essay about the parts of speech, and she thought that nouns were the most boring of all of the parts of speech, which I was like, I remember, and I still kind of, nouns and adjectives she didn't like, which are like two of my favorite things as a poet. Anyway, I just thought it was funny, and I reread some of her stuff about, and like one of her famous lines is, a rose is a rose is a rose, you know, that whole Shakespeare thing. Anyway, I digress. What the bottom line here is that numbers are nouns because they are, it makes them, I think, more tangible. And so I think when you pair the verb of the element with a noun of the number, then you get this sentence, and then you get the story of the element going through, and you can write more to that. I mean, this, is not just, this is reading tarot, but it's also, as always, like a creative writing exercise for me, but also just fun. So the grammar of the numbers, which sounds hilarious, is that they are nouns. And so I was inspired by, where I have my list. I was inspired by here it is, by the Grateful Dead tarot, which I've been talking about so much recently. And their words for the numbers like stood out to me the most. And I picked a noun, which ended up being more like a abstract. Is it abstract nouns? I have to think if these are all abstract nouns, because that's even better. That they're abstract nouns. So they that's a concept and not like a concrete thing. Yeah, 100%. These are abstract nouns. So if I get myself together, I'll put my words up on the screen, but like I'm encouraging you to you can use whatever you want, and they can change, and mine probably will change constantly because I can't imagine keeping the same noun for every single number all the time. But this started from the eights. That's how this started, because the eight the number 8 is always a hard one for me to place, and it's a hard one for me to kind of stretch across all the eights in the tarot. But the Grateful Dead had the word, well, words actually, phrase, paradigm shift. Um, no, not eights, sevens. Sorry, sevens, not eights. Had the word paradigm shift for the seven. Eight is also a tricky one for me, but not eight, seven. So the seven is paradigm shift, or alchemy. I see, like I can never choose. That's the thing. Like I do like having more than one word. For one noun here for. So I'll just go quickly through. So like ace is unity, 2, duality, 3, expansion, 4, stability, 5, regeneration, 6, harmony, 7, paradigm shift or alchemy, 8, infinity, 9, fullness, and 10, wholeness. So these are all nouns. These are all abstract nouns, okay? And I do understand that, what's one of these words? No, 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 they're all nouns. Yeah, they're all nouns. Anyway, okay, so that is the numbers. So then you put it together. So let me grab a random from the movie tarot. I'll pull a random card, and we got the 10 of wands. So depending on which verb you choose, right? So you're going to start with the verb and then land on the whatchamacallit, on the number. So 10 of wands is, so you could say, you could use creating for wands, or you could use burning, or you could come up with your own verb. But like, so for me, wholeness, creating wholeness, or burning wholeness. Like, that's so cool. Burning wholeness, creating wholeness. I love it. Some other words for 10, rebirth, return, like there's, those are other nouns. But like, just think about it, like a verb and a noun that you're putting together. So I like creating for the wands the best. Creating wholeness. Let me grab another one. So here we have, oh, another 10. The 10 of cups. So we have our same noun, wholeness, except now we have interacting with wholeness. Or we have drinking. I love that. Drinking wholeness. And I can imagine myself, like, using just the minors and writing a poem together, like putting all these words together. Let me grab another one. Let's see if we get, okay, 6 of coins. So we have a different one now. So we have, obtaining is our verb, obtaining, and the 6 is harmony, obtaining harmony, or digging harmony. Digging harmony. So like, I know I'm not the first person to have done this, but I really just like was kind of keying into the grammar aspect of things. Let me grab another one. We have 3 of cups. So we have the 3 is expansion for me. So we have interacting with expansion. Interacting with expansion. So we have our verbs and we have our nouns, and now you can see how you can link that together into a sentence, and you can, read the tarot that way, and you can build your suit story that way, or you can do creative writing that way, like whatever. Now, court cards. And the part of speech that I assign to the courts is adjectives. So, so we have the elements or suits are verbs, the numbers are nouns, and the court cards are adjectives. And I think, I mean, that works really well for me because they are descriptors, right? So adjectives, they modify, nouns. So now, in order to create like our little, phrase, or really it's a phrase, I mean, or a sentence, it could be a phrase or a sentence. We are going to give the courts each one a specific adjective, but then what we'll do is we'll switch we'll switch and make the element a noun. So when you have the minors, you're going to have verb, you know um and noun, right? But then when you have the courts, you're going to have an adjective and you're going to switch the element to a noun. I don't know. That's just what I did. You guys could think it's weird. And the parts of speech, I guess, are changing. So let me start with like a page. So this is from the movie Tarot, and that's uh from Shakespeare in Love, right? So the is it Joseph Fiennes? Yeah, Joseph Fiennes is the main character and is the Page of Cups. Okay. So the pages, the word, the adjective that we're using for page, all pages, is curious. And then so then what we do is we take the water, the cups, element verb, and we make it a noun. So we say curious interaction. Does that make sense? So then we have the knights, and all of the knights, the adjective for knights is focused. And so I know some of you might use these words like specifically for a specific knight, but I like the word focused for all of them. And that's just me. And for now, and like that'll probably change. So here's Neo from the Matrix, the Knight of Coins. So focused, and then we would go to our word for the element, which is focused obtainment. Focused obtainment, because I'm making obtaining into a noun. That one's not quite as refined. I always struggle with the earth suit to find something, but like focused obtainment, or focused digging, if I wanted to use the other word. But I liked that idea, right? And then we have our queen, and her adjective is nurturing. So, which is funny, because this is Sharon Stone's character in Basic Instinct. So nurturing defense. You like that? Nurturing defense. I like that. I like it a lot. So we took our adjective, we paired it with our element that is now gone from verb to noun. Um, and yeah, and I just thought that was cool. And then finally we have our king, and the adjective is expert for me, expert, which I know can be used as a noun as well. Like I know some of these words can be, all depending on how you use it in the sentence, can be a different part of speech. It can function differently. I know. But I want to use it as an adjective in this case. So in this case, we would say an expert creator, an expert creation, or an expert creator, which I kind of like that for Indiana Jones. I really like that for Indiana Jones here for Harrison Ford. So, yeah, I mean, it's a work in progress. It's trial and error, and it's fun for me to do this with the cards, to do different playing with grammar. And it felt to me like as I was doing this, sort of exercise, that I was kind of like getting back to the root, getting back to basics, like kind of just like letting all the esoteric stuff kind of slide away and just getting to like bare bones and like foundational things. So when we're talking about the majors, and I'll just flip through the majors from the movie Tarot to talk to you about the majors. The majors for me don't sit in a specific part of speech. The majors themselves are a poem. And I know that folks have done like there are some books where people have tried to write a separate poem for each one. God, this is my favorite strength card probably ever. Have tried to write a poem for each of the 22 majors. And I actually am working with a deck that has a poem that kind of ranges across all 22 majors, which I think is interesting. But for me, in my heart, the majors are, I can't boil them down like to one part of speech. I find it difficult to boil them down to one word in general. I feel like they are a poem because they I don't know. I'm returning to this idea, and I feel like I learned it first, and then I went away from it with the Fool's Journey, right? You know, the Fool's Journey, that arc of the story from, the beginning of the majors to the end of the cycle. And I'm kind of like interested in just revisiting that because I think I got far away from it. And I feel like a poem, right, or a story, a narrative, which lots of tarot decks do as well, it can grasp that. So it's harder for me, I guess, to simplify the majors into one part of speech when I feel like there's so much that I love this. There's so much more, and I love this so much. Say what again? All right. Sorry. Loves Sam L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction, which I hadn't seen in years and recently rewatched, is like mind-blowingly good. Like I appreciated it in my youth, but I feel like I appreciate it even more. Anyway, say what again? Um, so yeah, that's I don't think I can boil down the tower to just one part of speech because it's a poem. I mean, like it's a scene in a movie. It's a poem. Yeah. There's the devil. So that's Selma Hayek from it's another Quentin Tarantino movie. Why can't I think of the name of it? You'll remind me or I'll put it up on the screen. And another Quentin Tarantino movie. Quentin Tarantino features a lot in the movie tarot, but hey, this was definitely done by somebody I think of my generation. So yeah, that's how I think of the majors as really like poems. I have not written, maybe one day I will write a poem for each of the majors. But I see, I definitely see, and I haven't given a lot of love to the Alice Tarot, but I'm not gonna do more than that, I think. But I see I never finished my sentences either. I turn to myself constantly. But I see the numbers as nouns. And well, the elements I think are shifting, right? They shift from being verbs to nouns depending on how you're reading them. And I just think it's fun. And that's my little grammar quote unquote lesson for today. I just think it's fun, and let me know what you think, and let's write poetry together. Let's write tarot poetry together. Let's write tarot sentences together. I'm sure you've heard of these concepts before, but what do you think about it, in terms of parts of speech to help you get to your sentence or phrase? Tell me what you think. Thanks for sticking with me, and I hope that you all have a beautiful, wonderful day. Bye.